the seed means after fertilization has occurred, you know, the pod has formed, the pea plant, this is the pod and the seeds are there. I should have color of the seed. All right. So he found some as yellow and some of the seeds were green. The fourth character he found, color of pod, of the pod. What is pod and what is seed? These are the seeds and this is the pod. The entire thing, that is the pod. Is it clear? Some of the pods were green in color and some of the pods were yellow in color. Okay. The fifth one is shape of the seed. Okay, some were round, some produced, in some of the pods the seeds were round. All right, some were round and in some pods he found the seeds were wrinkled like this. Is it all right? So in some he found the seeds were wrinkled. Okay, the sixth character is shape of the pod. Some pods he found, sorry, I am just showing you here, pods from outside. Some pods were inflated like this. All right, this is like common pea what you see. Some pods were inflated like this and some, if you see the pods, they were constricted like this. This is constricted pod, you know, you can see the constrictions. So some of them are inflated, fula hua, inflated, and some were constricted. Okay, and the seventh character is the position of the flower. Position of the flower. Okay, position of the flower, you find that some were in the axial position and some were, you can say flower or floral bud, some were axial. I am explaining what is the meaning of this, axial, and some were terminal. After doing this after showing you the experiments, I will explain you few more things, the precautions which Mendel took, and that was the reason for his success. Why did he got his results? But that only I'll tell you only after showing you the experiments. Now, what is the meaning of axial? Suppose this is a branch. Okay, this is the branch of pea plant. This is a branch of pea plant. Some of the flowers were coming out from this region. This is the axis of the leaf. All right, flower or floral bud, whatever you say. So this is axial position, and some were right on the top. Is it clear? This position, the floral bud were coming out. Is it clear? Or the flower was blooming at the terminal position. So either the flowers were coming out from the axial position. In some plants he found that the flowers are coming out from the axial position, and in some he found the flowers were coming out, or they were blooming, they were growing on the terminal position. So many contrasting, and what do we call it? We call these characters as contrasting characters. Is it clear? One character is there and there are contrasting form. If you see a flower, the flower is either either purple or white. If you see the seed is either round or wrinkled. There is no in between. Is it okay? Now here again one thing he found since I will be using this term again, when he was doing these experiments repeatedly, he was carrying out these experiments repeatedly, he was crossing means he always crossed a tall plant with dwarf plant purple with a white. When he was crossing, you will understand more about it later. After his experiments, he found that one particular character out of these two, one was more expressed. Is it all right? He took one tall plant, he took one dwarf plant, he crossed them. all right. How crossing I have already told you. He crossed them, is it clear? And then he saw the generations, generation after generation. He found that in the successive generations, more number of tall plants were there than dwarf plant. Is it clear? But he started with one parent tall plant, one parent dwarf plant. But what he found that the offsprings were more tall than dwarf. Is it clear? Same he found here. When he crossed purple with white, you have to take remember that which one was more expressive. When he took purple flower and crossed it with a white flower, he found the successive in the successive generations, more number of purple flowers were coming out than white. Is it clear? Means more plants were growing with purple flower than white. Same with the color of the seed. Now see the fun over here. See the fun over here. Is it all right? The color of the seed. He found that most of the seeds were yellow in color. When he crossed a yellow seed with a plant producing yellow seed with a plant producing green seed, he crossed. He found most of the seeds in the successive generations were yellow. Is it all right? And then with the color of the pod, it's just the opposite. He found more of the pods as green than yellow. So what is the meaning? And none of the characters were dependent on each other. What is the meaning? None of the characters were dependent on each other. The meaning is, it is not necessary that if there is a tall plant, it will produce purple flower, or if there is a yellow pod, if there is a green pod, it will produce green seed or yellow seed. They were not related. They were all independent. That means a green pod could produce yellow seed. A green pod could produce green seed. A green pod could produce yellow seed, or a green pod could produce green seed. The two characters were not dependent on each other. They were not dependent. They were independent. Is it all right? So that is the reason when we are finding yellow seed when crossed with green seed, whichever way, we find that more number of yellow seeds were formed, whereas yellow pod when crossed with green pod, we find more number of green pods were formed. I will explain this again when I explain monohybrid and dihybrid crosses. Is it all right? And accordingly, he said one of the character, means one of the form of characters are dominant, and he listed, here I have written it like that also, he listed all as these as dominant. He called them as dominant characters. Dominant characters, and these characters which were less expressive, they were recessive characters. They were recessive characters. One was dominant character, another was recessive character. Which was dominant? The characters which were expressing themselves more. In the successive generation, the characters which were more expressed, they were dominant characters, and here the one which are less expressed, they were recessive characters. Fine. Now we start with, so this is another reason he took Pisum sativum, so that the crosses, the results of the crosses become very prominent, remain very prominent. Is it all right? Okay. And now we start with the crosses. But before we go with the crosses, I will just show you certain things. What are the ways of his cross? How did he cross? Is it clear? What are the, so here, whenever he did the cross, he took two plants. Is it clear? The parent one plant, try to understand this, and we follow this in parent one and parent two. Okay, irrespective to the sex. That means this could be a female, this could be a male, or this could be a male, this could be a female. Okay. One of the he took a character. I'll start with one character, whichever character he considered. Suppose he took the height character, he took the character height. All right, he wanted to study height. Okay. When he wanted to study height, he took the first parent one character, means when he wanted to study height, one of the parent is taken tall and the other parent is taken dwarf. Whenever he studied a character, the parents were always take it contrasting. I mean to say that he never took tall and tall or dwarf and dwarf. Is it all right? He made it sure that whichever, it's not that height, whichever character he studied, maybe he wanted to study the character as the color of the flower. Is it clear? Or the color of the seed. If he had taken color of seed, one of the plant would be producing yellow seed, the other plant would be producing green seed. Always contrasting characters, is it?